on digital economy. The participants are Sushma Ramachandran, economic analyst, and Lalima Anija Dang, anchor. The fourth in-person meeting of Digital Economy Working Group is being held in Bengaluru today. Now, traditional brick-and-mortar economic activities like production, distribution and trade are being transformed by Internet, World Wide Web and blockchain technologies and much more. And one of the main objectives of digital economy is to facilitate investment in innovative digital technologies. Well, India's digital economy has seen tremendous growth in the past decade, a growing user base of 800 million plus internet users, over 107 unicorns with a valuation of $340.79 billion. We have with us our economic analyst, Ms. Sushma Ramachandran with us. Hello, Sushma, and welcome to Akashvani.
Thank you, Lalima.
Sushma, can we say that making digital technology governance is at the heart of G-20 presidency, and now India has the wherewithal, with it being the most populated country in the world and being the fifth largest economic power?
Yes, certainly. I think this is the most important theme on which the G20 members are having discussions with India as the leader. And I think it is a great benefit for the other G20 members that India has the presidency, and India will be able to provide the benefit of its expertise to other countries in the area of the digital economy, digital public infrastructure, and share the ways in which India has been able to manage its digital infrastructure.
Yes, certainly. I remember when COVID happened, we were handing out the digitized format of the certificate, whereas other countries, the so-called developed countries, were giving it in writing. So we have made a lot of change, and our governance is now getting more towards the digitization. Sushma, you talked about ourselves developing technologies. Of course, we are doing very well in the IT sector and we dominate the world in that sector. We now have our own locally developed 5G technology. We've also been able to eradicate black money circulation and reduce red tapeism and, of course, improve governance through digitization. Does that help us shed a bit of our quote-unquote developing nation status and take us onto our own path of modernity? And as you said, that we are now poised to lead the world in digitized world?
Well, there's no doubt that we are still developing, or an emerging economy as it's now called, because we still have a large segment of people below the poverty line. There are millions of people who in the last decade or so have been brought out of the poverty line, and very rapidly. And also we have been able to provide, the benefit of the digital economy to everyone. And you talked about the vaccination process. In 2020, when vaccines were being developed, there was a great deal of skepticism as to whether India, with its huge population, would be able to vaccinate everybody. They said, okay, you have a great experience in terms of vaccinations for children, that is polio and things like that, which India has done very successfully. But this is for adults also. This is for the entire population. So this is not so easy. Because of Aadhaar, and because of the digitization of the economy, the introduction of the India Stack, the governance model that we have adopted, the vaccination process was able to reach the remotest hamlet in the country. To each and every individual in the country, man or woman, was reached and they were vaccinated. It was a remarkable effort. And of course, as you pointed out, the certificates were all online. So, the person didn't have to worry about keeping a piece of paper handy. It was on their phones. So this is a great achievement of this country. We are certainly, of course, as I said, we remain an emerging economy. But as far as digitization is concerned, we are way ahead of many developed economies.
And Sushma, at the Bali summit, Indian Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi described the rollout of digital public infrastructure as the most remarkable change of our era. Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. What we call the India Stack, and that's what people are talking about all around the world. And I think even the International Monetary Fund has stated that this India Stack has been able to foster innovation and competition, expand markets, close gaps in financial inclusion, boost government revenue collection, and improve public expenditure efficiency. I'm quoting from the IMF statement on the role of the India Stack and their suggestion that other developing economies and developed economies can learn from India as far as the India Stack is concerned. So what is the India Stack? The India Stack is what is known as a set of APIs. Now, APIs are application programming interfaces, they're called. And these set of APIs allow governments, businesses, etc., to utilize this unique digital infrastructure to solve all of the country's problems in terms of reaching out to people. Now, the India stack, we call it the India stack, that is, a stack is a pile. So the first level is the Aadhaar authenticity, and then you have the e-signature, then you have digital locker. What we are all so accustomed to talk about is the United Payments Interface, the UPI, that enables us with such ease to make our payments from our banks without going there. We make payments to merchants, we make payments to traders, we make payments even to the roadside vendors through UPI.
Absolutely.
And the roadside vendors also have it. Now, this is something when you're talking about us being an emerging economy, how we're getting out of it. A developed economy like the US or the UK or Europe does not have that facility that we have and our people have. So that is where that we are actually going beyond developed economy. So the India stack is the structure that was created by an institution called iSpirit, and that is what is powering the digitization of the economy.
Sushma, in the light of what you're saying that yes, we are geared up to lead now, as far as digitization is concerned, we've moved much ahead. How does digital economy impact traditional economic sectors? Now that G-20 countries are all getting together to talk about many issues, I'm sure this will also come up in the discussion somewhere.
So every traditional sector now is trying to digitize, because if they don't, then they will get left behind. And this is around the world, not just in India. And when we talk about digitization, we talk in terms of financial transactions, first of all.
Yes.
So you digitize your payments, at the retail level, at what we call B2C, business to consumer, and the consumer can digitize his payments. Again, it is in India that you have so much of digitization at this level, at the financial transaction level. By the way, to clarify it, 40% of the total digital transaction in the world are carried out in India. So you can see the extent of digitization of our economy. I mean, if you take the UK, and I think there's some study which shows that's UK and a few other European countries, that is the level of digitization, number of transactions that take place in this country.
Right.
We have moved a great deal. So that is, you're talking about traditional businesses. So first is in the financial segment. Secondly, it is in terms of marketing also, because marketing also now has become digital. In design, they need to move towards digitization. Also, design of their products is, you need design talent, which comes people who are skilled on digital platforms. So marketing, and also even in handling human resources, because people are not necessarily working at the workplace, they want to work from home. To handle your human resources also, you need digitization. So now every business, every traditional business has to think about digitization.
And as you just mentioned, that would also open up space for more futuristic skills as we move into the third decade of the 21st century, Sushma. Digitalization has been a pioneer in post-pandemic economic recovery, we can say that. So has the shifting of contours of global economy opened new frontiers of development and new space for futuristic skills?
Yes, I think during the pandemic, one of the things that happened, and which you will recall, which we will all recall, is that people were sitting at home and therefore their access to the outer world was through the internet. So the importance of the internet and what is known as the Internet of Things, that is extending it to your digitization to other things, expanded tremendously. Therefore, in the post-pandemic world, although we came back to the offices, there was a great expansion of the use of digital technology. I think one of the ways in which digital technology has now advanced very fast after that is artificial intelligence.
Exactly, I was coming to that.
And not only are we talking about the progress of artificial intelligence, we are talking about regulating artificial intelligence and how far should it go. So there are two schools of thought in the high-tech communities. So this is also something that needs to be considered.
Well, you picked up a very important point, and that's about regulation. Cybersecurity challenges are enormous. We recently had in our own country some raids at, a lot of cybersecurity crimes have increased manifold, and raids were conducted to get into to break that whole net. Is G20 now focusing on how to tighten up the loose ends as far as cybersecurity is concerned, especially not just within the country, but also cross-border?
You see, you're absolutely right. I think it's very important that the G20, which is developed and developing nations sitting together, must tackle this issue because, as you rightly say, every day in the newspapers we are reading about cyber frauds increasing.
Yes.
Now, these are trans-border transactions, people sitting in India defrauding people maybe in the US and UK, or people sitting in China defrauding people in India. So, it's quite an international nexus. So it has to be countries coming together to focus on this issue and try and tighten rules, regulations, tighten systems. For cybersecurity, you can't just lay down a rule. You have to tighten systems. And you have to have the cooperation of other countries to tighten these systems. And this is where the G20 confabulations are going to be important. We have been talking now of fraud on individuals. There is fraud. Cyber fraud is on a much larger scale now. It is against governments. It could be against the Indian government. It could be against the British government or the Chinese government or any other government.
Or even institutions.
And exactly. Governmental institutions. It could be against power systems, power plants,
yes.
And paralyzing an entire city. So these are the things that now cybersecurity experts in different countries have to collaborate to put in place systems so that this kind of thing can be controlled and regulated.
Sushma, you correctly pointed out the fact that G20 has such a large heterogeneous membership. We have the developed and the developing countries. Does it make the whole thing a little complex, a kind of a double-edged sword, I dare say? Not to forget that this time it's happening in the background of Ukraine-Russia war. So would it require a lot of diplomatic skill to come to a certain decision which requires consensus?
Yes, of course. I think this is one issue that has been of concern to all the G20 members, especially India, as soon as it assumed the presidency. And I think India is very well placed to ensure that at least there is some kind of unanimity in the final statements on various issues, because India has, of course, very good relations, traditional relations with Russia. India has increasingly close relations with countries of the West, especially the United States, with UK. The relationship has become warmer. Recently, the Prime Minister visited France also. That also is very traditional ties with France for a very long time. Ties with the US, in fact, I would say, are relatively new and fragile. Of course, they have been increasing for quite some time. They have been improving, but probably the relations with the US, I think this is better than ever before for India. The India-US relationship is probably better than it has ever been, probably since independence. So India is poised at this moment to be, hopefully, a country which can use its diplomatic skills to bring about some kind of compromise agreement on the statements, at least, at the end of this presidency.
Right. So we earnestly hope that this G20 summit on digitization will bear fruit, and they will all, despite their huge heterogeneous nature of membership, they will agree to disagree and probably come to some common conclusions in the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that is, the whole world is a family, which is the philosophy which India has given to the entire world. Well, thank you so much, Sushma, for talking to us and giving us your views on this.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on significance and key priorities of G20 meeting on digital economy. The participants were Sushma Ramachandran, economic analyst, and Lalima Aneja Dang, anchor. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on Air. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on Air Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsttalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 928-909-4044.
ये आकाशवाणी है। चर्चा का विषय है कार्यक्रम में प्रस्तुत है विशेष चर्चा अमृतकाल